Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm Dan Schwab.
Michael Schwab. Good to see everyone and excited for today's conversation, Dan.
Yep, I think we're going to give everyone a couple, maybe another minute or so to join. Um, we should figure
I
this out,
see,
Michael. What do you
yeah,
think?
I'm looking at the opening slide. I see Dan Schwab and Michael Schwab. Does that mean you're going first?
Yes, it's in height order, best
I
looking. So
thought
that's how
I thought it was age before beauty was the unwritten rule here. So maybe that applies as well. But all right, so if you're going first, Thursday, I get to cut the turkey.
got it, which is a good reminder not to eat too much. I think I always panic eat. Like we're going to run out of food, which we always have
Absolutely.
excess. A lot of our relatives tend to panic when there's all that food out.
And I found some Blantons to buy, Dan, so I'm going to need your credit card after we're done here.
Sounds good. Um, all right.
Well, we have two topics today, Dan, and as everybody gets online here, just by way of background, we're going to talk first, and I'll give you the platform to talk about culture, because we think a company's culture is a key differential, whether you're in the IT industry or no matter what you do in life. Working for an organization that has a great culture makes a meaningful difference. And I think it is the tangible value across the employee base that creates the culture. And it starts at the top. There's no question that you see organizations that you choose to work with. Perhaps you choose to work with them because you like the interaction, you like the people, you like the company culture. Secondarily, I'm going to take over and talk a little bit about ESOPs because, in so many ways, we work with privately held companies. Employee ownership is something D&H has embraced for more than 20 years, and I'll tell you more about that and how an ESOP works. And I think for many organizations that are thinking about their legacy, succession, whether it's today, tomorrow, or in the future, I think that's a good topic for everybody to learn a little bit more about because employee ownership is definitely commingled with a great company culture.
Love it. All right, good. So this should be about a 45-minute presentation. We hope to save you 15 minutes of your life at the end. We do have a Q&A section, so feel free to ask questions. We'll do our best to try and answer them at the end of the presentation. But regardless, we will send out a follow-up Q&A to everyone along with a link to watch the video. And the genesis of my presentation around culture is from a college course where I guest lecture, and it's about how you scale your business. And it's mostly teaching kids about how you get funding, how you go private equity, how you go public. And many companies struggle as they accelerate their growth. And the culture they had when they were a startup, when they were a small entity, gets lost. So I really speak about what Michael and I did, which is how you consciously scale your culture. So hopefully you'll get some nuggets out of this. Michael and I speak to groups of CEOs all the time, and we're honored to speak with you here today. So for starters, just level set, I think everyone knows this about D&H. We're privately held. We're employee owned. The employees own almost half the company. We've been in business almost 108 years. I've not been here 108. Michael has. Everyone is based in North America. So we don't outsource. We believe that service is a primary differentiator. And we're approaching $7 billion in revenue. We're literally one of the top 100 private companies in North America, something we're really proud about. This is our growth the last 10 years. So we've really been fortunate that we've been able to grow. This is all organic. We've never acquired companies until recently around our supply chain business, but this is all organic. And basically, our model is similar to our two primary competitors. We think we win because of our service models, and we've been growing dramatically faster than the marketplace, and we expect the future to be great. But this wasn't always what our business looked like. And if you roll back the hands of time, this is what D&H's revenue looked like. So for the first 80 or 90 years, business didn't grow that much. And what happened is business started to scale. And when your business starts growing this quickly, it's like we always say, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. Things started to change, and it created a circumstance when Michael and I really were taking over the company, and things were different. When Michael and I started, there was 150 people in our headquarters. We knew everyone's name. We knew their spouse's name. But as we grew, we started losing that. And this is what I'm going to present today on. And it was a challenge that we faced. And our business started to dramatically accelerate. And look what happened. Our turnover went from around 5% a year to almost 15% a year. So think about that. So basically, instead of 1 out of 20 people, it was 3 out of 20. And it was 3 years in a row. And what happened is you lose your institutional knowledge. You lose people who've been here that get the culture and get the customer-centric business values and everything about it. So we started missing SLAs, and we had a lot of challenges. So we were left with a dilemma of what would we do? And we realized that we had lost our way a little bit. And in 2008, both Michael and I became co-presidents. And we went back to what we thought why we were different and why we had almost no turnover. And we really started to focus on this. And we surveyed our employee co-owners and did a lot of things to feedback. And we created what's called our D&H DNA. And this came from our employee co-owners saying, what describes the people that you find are the most successful here, people that you want to emulate, and people that we believe are the future leaders of the company. And these words came out, people that are collaborative, work well together, they're driven, they're passionate. And we decided that once we had a formula of what we think is part of our company culture, what our strategic differentiators were, we set out a course to consciously scale it. Because a lot of companies, culture is not something you talk about. It's a little bit more relevant today, but historically, just who you were and what you were. You don't really talk about it until you lose it, right? You can end up hiring some people that are really talented, but they're not a cultural fit. It's oftentimes become a cancer to the organization, right? That they're a command and control person and they don't develop leaders. So we really had to get the collective buy-in of all of our co-owners about where we're going and how we want to do this. But it started with Michael and myself. And we had to start doing some things that separated D&H from where we were before. There's a great quote. This came from the CEO of Wells Fargo. And it says, when you get bigger, you don't get better. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. Think about a lot of the companies you work with, that maybe you love working with. And as they get bigger, it's hard to scale your culture. It's hard to scale your service model. So we made the conscious effort that as we scaled our revenue, we wanted to scale our culture at the same time. So what did we start doing? Michael and I started meeting with every new employee on their first day. Literally, every new employee within the company we meet with on their first day. We welcome them, we give them our name, our emails, we tell them we answer our own phones, we answer our own emails, and we share that, we want you to think about your job, that you're the CEO of your job. And we want you to treat it different than any other company you've had before. On their 90th day, either Michael or I takes 45 minutes and goes over the company history and culture with every new employee. So usually in groups of 5 or 7. And we take the time because the first week or two, they're still trying to figure out where the coffee is, what the hell this job is. So we wait until they've been here a little bit. And actually for D&H, at about 90 days is when they become owners in the company. And we share a little bit more about our DNA and how we got here and our expectations of them. We then meet with every employee co-owner on their 1-year anniversary. We actually invite them up to our office. It's called Pizza with the President. We order in salads and pizza. And the key part of the meetings are, tell us what you think, we don't want to hear.
Hey, Dan, you have pizza? Why do I get the sushi and the lobster tail?
Michael, you need to eat the salad. I've seen what you a couple pounds lately. But the part of it we loved is tell us what you think we don't want to hear. And people speak up. I'm shocked how often new employees are willing to ask the tough questions. And if you think about it, new employees are objective. They came from the outside. Our biggest strength is people have been here 10 or 20 years. It's also our biggest weakness because they become so subjective, right? They're not coming with new ideas that they worked at a larger entity or someone that was more progressive in some way, shape, or form than we were. So we really try and engender them and make sure they're comfortable speaking up. Because the whole model is if you speak up and you ask why something is done this way, your manager needs to explain it to you, or you have to keep speaking up because you either need to learn why or challenge us to think about it differently. And if you're not getting a good response, the manager often becomes the issue. And we have lots of mechanisms that they can reach out to Michael and myself. They could reach out to questions at dnh.com. It goes right to our chief HR person. We really want to make sure that people are comfortable speaking up. So we do skip levels. So Michael and I do skip levels, that we skip our C level. We meet right with our VPs without them. But we can't scale that. And Michael and I came in with everyone. So we had our C-level do skip levels with directors, our VP do skip levels with managers. And the whole goal is not to complain about, but to get direct feedback. Again, most companies don't want to hear, tell us what you think. We don't want to hear. Most companies don't want to hear the bad stuff. We like hearing the good stuff, the bad stuff. Sorry. We like hearing the bad stuff because we know a lot of stuff we do is good. We want to get better. So our job is to create a forum where people speak up regularly. And I think that has a lot to do with our becoming a best place to work, because people feel that they're part of the decision process. So I think that's a key differentiator for us. And I use this slide. So these pictures are the lobby of D&H. And for any of you that have been to D&H, we have all the products we've sold over 100 plus years, from the first black and white TV, the first color TV, first portable computer, first digital camera, literally phonographs. And it reminds us that the world's going to keep evolving and we have to learn around the corner. But when we think about our business and all the trends and issues we go through, from macroeconomic events to changes in technology, we have to keep evolving. But our belief is that we want everyone to be evolving every month, every week, every day. So if you think about big public companies, you always see these giant press releases that we're jettisoning this division, we're everyone's turning right and we're going this way. We don't like revolutions. Organizations don't digest revolutions. It's dysfunctional for partners. And then ultimately people often reverse course. So our job is to challenge a status quo every day and ask our co-owners to do that on a regular basis. And the arrow is really meant to be everyone rowing in the same direction, so that you don't have silos, you don't have politics, you don't have bullshit. Because when you get bigger, those things tend to grow in an organization unless you don't tolerate it. And we really don't within our company. We really try and hire good people that want to be collaborative. We had to weed out people that don't fit our culture. They may have been talented, but they may have undermined this whole collaborative effort that we win together. It really is a team mentality. And think about great football teams or great baseball or any sports teams. You think about how the coaches really talk about the team mentality and next man up, and about how we win together. And I think that's such a big part of the D&H DNA. So these are some of the business beliefs that Michael and I believe strongly in. So first of all, kind of this bust your tail but have a good time doing it. That Michael and I have to have a great sense of humor and have fun and be willing to put ourselves out there. And we don't like ivory towers. I'm sure any of you that have worked for giant, large public companies, they manage it by spreadsheets and people are treated as numbers. We believe in this bottoms up mentality. And we talk about a lot via the Socratic method, because in the Socratic method, you get feedback from lots of different vantage points, diversity of thought and experience. And by doing that, you often make better decisions. And also, not only do you make better decisions because you've punched holes in it and you incorporated a lot of people with a lot of perspectives at all different levels of the company. When you do make the decision, people are now bought in. Either they feel they're part of the decision and they agree with it, or even if they maybe don't agree with it, at least they felt part of the process and they're willing to now get on board because we heard everyone out. It's a big, healthy step that we take, and it allows this culture of transparency that when we are faced with big decisions, we're including the organization within it. And we really promote people for speaking up. We love when people tell Michael and I we're wrong. So in our 90-day meeting, in our Pizza with the President 1-year anniversary, all the time, I remember we had a meeting once on the 1-year anniversary, someone asked me, why don't we have a mission and vision statement? And I said, because I think they're dumb. I think our business is so dynamic, it changes. And they said, we think you're wrong. And I friggin' loved it. And we tasked the 8 of them saying, guess what? You're the mission and vision committee. Why don't you take a stab at writing it? And they did it, and they did an exceptional job. And now Michael and I espouse it all the time because it succinctly talks about what makes our company different.
And for clarity, Dan, just for clarity, about 8 out of the 10 comments where they say we're wrong, it's about you, not me. Just
8 out of 10, we're rounding up now. Well, yeah, which leads to, Michael, the next point, which is accepting your weaknesses. Because all of us have certain strengths, right? Michael may not be good at math, or I may talk too fast, or whatever it is. And I think the key is raise your hand as a leader in a company. And that's a big part of our culture. So we had a botched ERP implementation a decade ago. And a lot of companies, they won't divert from it because the CEO or CIO gets fired. Michael and I we're big believers in fail fast, raise your hand and say, we screwed up. And there's a great line that the gentleman that we hired that ran our Canadian organization for 10 years had a great line that we copy, which is, let me think about how we exactly phrase it. Reserve
Our competitors can replicate, right?
Yeah. Competitors can replicate our products, our processes, our warehouses. So our people are different. But the one that I really loved is reserve the right to get smarter. Reserve the right to get smarter. That may have been the right decision 6 months ago with the information you had, but you reserve the right to get smarter and make sure your team feels that way. And that, I think, is a very healthy thing, that you've got 6 more months of knowledge. Maybe you underestimated some challenges you were going to have. Maybe your projections were too aggressive, and be able to pivot and not have people worried about speaking up that, hey, I screwed up or our department screwed up. We want to admit it as an organization. We're also big believers of work-life balance, even before that became kind of a hot thing that this, Gen Z started talking about. We all work really hard so that we can have a great life outside of work. And it's such a part of who we are as our jobs. But I think we're big believers that if you don't like what you're doing and the people you're working with, get the hell out of D&H, right? If it doesn't fit you. So think about that within your organizations. You really want people, you want to make yourself stickier. People don't leave because of money. Sometimes they'll say that's the top reason. It's usually because they have a bad boss, or they don't feel they're included, or they're not part of this. They don't see a future there. So for us, we spend a lot of time talking to everyone about how they can make a difference, how they can act like a leader even before they are. Going back to, you are the CEO of your job. And I think whatever your role is, we tell Mike, when I give these conversations, you don't have to be the president of the company to do what we're talking about. Do it within your team, do it within your department or your area. You will quickly prove to the balance of the company that you have the most organized team, people that are the most collaborative and working together, and a high performance, high functioning team. When you have this kind of everyone rowing in the same direction and team mentality. We don't like command and control. So when Michael and I took over, we had some leaders in the company that were great leaders. They'd been here decades. They were command and control. They would chastise people in public, and they would rarely praise people. And it flew in the face of what we were trying to do. And it didn't create leaders. In fact, most of our best people left the company at that time because they weren't treated well for speaking up and challenging the status quo. They were getting out of their lane. Again, we call BS on that. We want people to challenge other departments in the company. Why are we doing this in accounting or trade or credit or finance? You want that because a lot of times departments don't understand the upstream or downstream impact of their decisions. And again, if we're one company, those department heads and teams should be open to feedback, right? You shouldn't be, in a lot of big companies, you're like, that's none of your business, and they get very defensive. We try and look at it just the oppositely and hold ourselves to a higher standard and be willing to accept responsibility and listen to other areas. Again, I find that has proven to be really successful for us. And Michael and I, we have to set the stage every day, just like each and every one of you, that we have to be empathetic. We really have to genuinely care about our co-owners, which we do. We think about all of our policies in the company, from our healthcare to what we'd want for our own kids. And we have to walk the walk, because if Michael and I say what we're telling you today, and we sound like we're on our high horse saying about all these things, but we undermine ourselves one time we don't espouse these values, we lose everyone. It took years to build up, and we lose everyone by not making sure we walk the walk. And I think it's important as a leader that you show vulnerability. Michael and I can laugh at each other. We're self-deprecating, and we make sure that we admit when we're wrong, and also ask for help. And finally,
and I'm glad you shared your wedding picture.
You like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I should wear that more often. And then I go back to, each company is different, right? So for my birthday, usually people pick out cakes or desserts. I did a cereal day. We had 100 different kinds of cereals in the office. Just little things that go a long way in life. Setting out handwritten notes. Michael and I write handwritten notes to every employee on their 2-year anniversary. We send emails to them, personalized for almost all the co-owners on the balance of anniversaries. We do handwritten notes. Again, little things go a long way. And most of the things that I think we do well as a company, a lot of our best ideas came from these new employees, these new co-owners, because they are objective. They do come with outside experience. And if you ever remember watching Schoolhouse Rock when we were younger, they had all those great ones like I'm Just a Bill, or Lolly, 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 Get Your Adverb Here. It was the Great American Melting Pot. And it was really saying you get lots of different people involved and you end up with a better entity. And I think that's part of our culture. We try and hire a lot of people smarter than us. That's easy to do when it comes to Michael. So again, my goal today was to take about 15 minutes, talk to you a little bit about our culture, why we feel it is our strategic differentiator. People are the glue that hold us together, add value. Partnerships matter, people matter, and relationships matter. And it works a heck of a lot better when people work well within the organization and they have great internal customer service, not just external. Michael, did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered everything. The only thing I would say, it is the week of Thanksgiving, and just to reiterate, the messaging. We reached out to all the employees and wish them a happy Thanksgiving and made sure they feel recognized and valued. And no better week to do that than this week. So I encourage everyone on the call to think about that and just reach out to the grouping that you work with and say thank you.
Great.
Okay. I get to now present on ESOPs, and it really is co-joined with this idea of culture. And the one slide Dan shared, it had us as thing one and thing two doing a Halloween event, and that co-joining of ESOP and culture is meaningful. And we were a company, as Dan showed on the slide, long before we became an ESOP. But the key takeaway that, in my experience, is that success across our organization is collective, not individualistic. And whether it is a sporting event, a sporting team, a company, any organization, it could be a nonprofit, it is a collective effort and energy that makes it successful. So I'm going to use the theme of Ted Lasso, one of my favorite shows. I know many of you on the call recognize Ted, but if you don't, I'll give you the quick backstory. There's a fictitious team called AFC Richmond that is in the English Premier League, the top soccer league in England. And they hire a coach who only coached football, American football, never soccer, and brought him over to be the new coach of AFC Richmond. It was actually done out of a divorce where a wife was spiting the husband who loved the team. But inevitably, Ted brings a unique value vision to the organization and shows success despite all the obstacles of not even knowing that it's called a pitch, not a field. So we talk about this today because many of us are in this moment in time where we need to be thinking about, future-proofing our business. What does that mean? Well, succession planning is critical, particularly in a private organization. In a public organization, when you think about a board, they're choosing a new CEO, a new CFO, and it's sort of the shareholders stay the same. But in a private organization, succession planning is critical, and it matters your personal timing, your professional goals, and emotional readiness to give up the reins. And I've seen many companies where the patriarch or matriarch really wanted to control the organization to the grave. And my advice is certainly that's probably an imprudent process, that you really need to think about longevity of the organization and what you make it look like for the future. I would say if you read anything about privately held companies, one of the key metrics that causes failure is the failure to plan around succession. Business planning, to me, is the most important concept to make sure that you've got a managerial team and organization that has the resources to continue on the path that you've built. But as owners, people need to think about their financial plan, retirement plan, tax and estate plan. That all factors in to these moments when thinking about how do they transition maybe to the next phase of an organization and the next phase in their life. And there is no better time perhaps to be thinking about this. From an estate planning standpoint, 2026 marks the highest in the 20th and 21st century, literally that longest period of time that the estate plan has been in, estate taxes have been in place, it's the highest exemption moment of all time. So when you're thinking about planning, it is critical that this is the moment that it's most meaningful, because you can do so without putting yourself in harm's way from a taxing perspective. And you think about succession planning, there's a couple different ways you could do it. You could go public. I feel like that's costly and not realistic for most organizations in the IT industry, nor do I recommend it based on the quarterly analyst examination or microscope that you're under. Third-party sales are very realistic in our business. It might be private equity. It might be a friendly buyout. It might be a competitor buyout, but third-party sales happen all the time. And it is perhaps a good way if somebody wants to exit fully, just to create a moment in time where they grew the business to a point and then others take it from there, sort of a roll-up mentality, perhaps. If you're fortunate enough to have a family that is, number one, interested in the business and capable, and secondarily can get along, I think that is a very realistic way to think about succession in a business. But I would say sale to employees is perhaps the best of all worlds, because you do get the fair market value for the sale of a portion of the business or all the business. If you are a family business, you get to keep the family members involved, and you create this continuity and engagement and culture that you've worked so hard to build. So let me tell you more about the ESOP program and how that encompasses employee ownership. Here we have Ted and a gentleman, Roy Kent. Roy was a pretty miserable but very talented individual on the team, went through some trials and tribulations, and we captured him smiling because at the end of the day, Ted was able to align the organization and his role and incentives that made sense for him. And through an ESOP, you can do the same for your employees. It is a qualified ERISA plan. So many of you are familiar with 401ks. An ESOP is defined in very similar measures under the IRS coding. I think about our experience since 1998 as an ESOP organization. The code has actually been in place since 1974. So this is 50 plus years. So I once met a friend and he was telling me his accountant had given him advice, hey, you got a dog? The friend says yes. And the accountant goes, well, yeah, write them off as a tax deduction on your tax return as a security feature. This is none of that. This is actually legit, hard and proven way to think about employee ownership. And what's interesting to me about it is it wasn't obvious back in 98, Dan and I were both part of the organization then, was the sense of belonging and mutual investment that you have when employees feel that they're owners of the company. And it aligns incentives because everybody wins if the company does well. And we have Rebecca. She was the individual that actually inherited AFC Richmond in the divorce from Rupert. And she's the one that hired Ted. And she inevitably actually sold the half the organization to the fans, not necessarily employees, but to the fans. So keeping it within the family dynamics. And that's exactly what an ESOP does. So the exit strategy is so interesting because it doesn't have to be 100%. Can't be 0% or you've done nothing, but anywhere in between, you can transfer iterations. It can be gradual. Ownership can be transferred over time, sold over time to the employees. There is a rule that I'll tell you about why you might want to consider 30% out of the gate. But key to it is it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And that company culture that Dan spoke so highly about is maintained and blossom, and I think actually grows exponentially under an ESOP program through this type of transition. And the buy-in, the employee buy-in is, from my estimation, twofold. You've got an emotional aspect to it, where we find that employees that have been here for many years, and even new employees, share this belief that you as an owner have understood, the idea of resilience, and we're gonna, create solutions to difficult problems. That is transcends the organization, literally from people that drive forklifts in our warehouse to people in accounting and marketing and sales. They're all looking for ways to cut costs and make sure the company's doing the best that it can. Secondly is from a cultural perspective. Anyone you meet at a D&H show that works for our organization, you're going to get the sense that they're very satisfied with the job. Our turnover is much less because of the ESOP, the engagement's at a high level, and we'll talk a little bit about recruitment. We think it is a great value add when you're recruiting for your organization as well. You know, Ted has this believe sign behind him, and it's one of the first lassoisms that you recognize if you watch the show. He goes, "I believe in hope, I believe in belief." And we clearly believe in ESOP as both emotional and cultural benefits to the employee base. I mentioned a little bit about, you know, problem solving and how you can use an ESOP to make your organization a bit better. This is the Diamond Dogs, if you watch the show. These are the leadership of AFC Richmond, all different roles with the organization, you know, coaches and the senior folks. And I think from a management perspective, the ESOP has that type of residual benefit as well, that they feel empowered. It allows them to work with their groupings that they interact with, people that work for them, and espouse the value of an ESOP. You know, the stock ownership incentivize employees, and we find they're a bit more committed. And as the company grows over time, you see the smiles on their face as they share in that mutual success. You know, we talk about the ESOP and, you know, how does it work in practice? Because, you know, fundamentally, you can think about, oh, ESOP, employee ownership, sounds good. Everything looks, you know, great on paper. But how does it work over time? Well, I've got a bit of information share that I think is going to be meaningful to all of you. But think about it from this perspective. It is something that the shares are released over a period in time. So even if you sell 30% to the employees, it's not like day two, 30% is dispersed amongst all the employees, because you're going to hire new people. You want to make them part of the ESOP program. So you want to do this as a time released mechanism. Now, that doesn't stop owners from selling the shares and sort of taking some chips off the table, so to speak. But this over time thought process really does create value for the employees and for the owners of the company. And the long-term financial rewards are tax incentivized. And it's a unique model because absent the IRS regulations that create all these benefits, you would say employee ownership on its own would be a worthwhile endeavor. You throw on it the government incentives that they've put in place to support this, and you get the sense that it is a win-win-win when you think about ESOPs. So let's look at the transactional aspects of how an ESOP works. And here you've got, you know, Roy and Ted, you know, taking a look at, well, tell me a bit more. So I'm going to grab my pointer here and walk you through the transaction. So first of all, you've got the company here. And the company is your organization, and you probably work with a bank, have a revolver, a working line of credit, you know, have a deposit account. The ESOP here in the middle is the entity that is created, the ESOP trust. The trust doesn't have any assets day one, so they need some assets to buy shares from the company. So what happens? You have first this external loan. The external loan is driven by a bank relationship that loans money to the company. The company, that's called an external loan. The company then creates an internal loan and loans the ESOP money. So you got money flowing from the bank to the company to the ESOP. Pretty simple at that moment. Interest rates can be equal. The length of the loans can be equal, can be different. But basically, the company is borrowing the money to give the ESOP the dollars to buy the shares. Now, if the banking relationships aren't that strong, the sellers of the company could just take a note back instead of, you know, buying. They become their own bank. So they basically sell the shares to the ESOP and they take a note back. So there's no repayment to the bank. The owners get repaid themselves. So let's assume there's a bank. The loan goes to the company loans to the ESOP. What then happens? The ESOP takes the money and pays it to the selling shareholders, which is what they want, taking some chips off the table, selling some shares. The selling shareholders then turn around and release the shares to the ESOP. At that moment, again, the ESOP has all the shares that were sold to it in trust. So none have been released to the employees yet. They're all called unallocated shares. So let's go with the 30% rate, 30% sale of the company rate. 30% of the stock now is held by the ESOP trust. The selling shareholders here may own the stock, let's say, for $3 a share. They sell it to the ESOP for the fair market value. I'll tell you a bit about that more. Let's say that's $10 a share. And that becomes the new basis for the employees as the shares are released. So just keep that in mind. We're assuming $3 to $10. There's large gain there for the selling shareholders. The selling shareholders are sort of out of that equation for the shares they sold at that moment, but you've got these loans that need to be repaid. So either through a dividend or a loan repayment contribution from the company, the ESOP has the money, the loan gets repaid to the company, then from the ESOP back to the company, and the company has the cash then to repay the bank. And it's sort of the reverse. There's a circular repayment back from the ESOP to the company to the bank. Very strategic way in which the cash flow moves. What are the advantages? Why would Rebecca be interested in this? Well, for the ownership, it creates a ready market for their privately held shares. So just as you were selling to a third party, you actually have a appraisal that gives you the value of the company, and boom, you can execute a ESOP transaction for the fair market value of that stock. You actually retain operational control. You can, sell 30, 40, in Rebecca's case, it was a 49% sale. D&H has given through the periods of time up to 48% now of the shares of D&H are held through the ESOP trust. Not all have been allocated as of yet, again, for future employees, but a total of 48% is in the ESOP. And this is critical, and where the IRS comes in. If you are a C Corp, and you sell 30% or more of the company shares to the ESOP trust, then you can defer your capital gain. So back to my example of a $3 basis, $10 selling price to the ESOP, because that was the fair market value, you would normally have a $7 capital gain that you'd have to pay taxes on. Through an ESOP sale, you can reinvest those proceeds. It's called a 1042, similar to a 1031 that you might have heard about for real estate. And you literally can invest in bonds, investments, real estate, and defer those taxes, which is critical, I think, from an owner perspective. So you can reinvest those proceeds outside of the company and defer those taxes until you sell that replacement property at some future point in time. So a great outcome for ownership. For employees, great as well, because now they are owners of the company. Nothing is out of pocket to the employees, which is great. The shares become allocated over time as the loan is repaid. So you can repay the loan, that internal loan, over 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. If you did it for, let's use 25 years, 4% of the shares as you repay the loan would be allocated every year for the next 25 years until all 100% of the shares are allocated back out to the employees. Nothing out of their pocket. And as those shares appreciate, they're not paying tax on those shares as well. So they're owners of the company. They don't own the shares outright. They're allocated to them, but the shares are in the trust. And nobody ever leaves with their shares, because you wouldn't want share ownership of outside the company, different than a public company. You want the shares sort of recycled back into the company. So through retirement or separation, those shares actually get put back into the ESOP trust, or the company can retire them as treasury shares. There's this idea of vesting as well, because ESOPs aren't set up to reward employees for being there 1 year. So most companies have a 6-year vesting period. So year 1, you're not vested. Year 2 through 6, you are over those 5 years, you are 20% vested. And once you're here 6 full years, as in the D&H example, everything in your ESOP balance is yours, whether you retire or separate for whatever reason. What's great also, the third leg of the stool is the benefit to the corporation. So if you remember, and I'll actually go back to point this out, this loan process, and we will share these slides with you so you have them, is that as the company makes contributions back to the ESOP, so it has monies to pay back the loan, those contributions, both the interest and principal of those loans basically are deductible. And when do you ever find that the principal on a loan is deductible? It's because you're making a contribution to an ERISA qualified plan, just like you would make a contribution to a 401k, those dollars are deductible. So as you're repaying the loan, the company is getting a tax deduction, and it's literally paying the money in, and it's circular in nature, and it's getting the money right back out of the ESOP. So it's money in, money out. Company's not out the cash, but they get a deduction for that contribution. It is almost like a magic formula, and I give credit to those that created this way back in 1974 to understand how employee ownership needs to work to make it an incentive for all parties involved. Now, setup. So if you recall, in the one episode, Ted Lasso was playing darts with Rupert, who was Rebecca's husband, and they were playing for something, I forget what, but the setup was Ted wasn't very good at darts, and as he's getting to throw, whether it's going to end in a win or loss, he says to Rupert, "Oh, I forgot I'm left-handed," and he starts throwing the darts left-handed, bullseye, bullseye, bullseye. So this is not like that. There is no like setup that's like someone's being led down a path to be led astray. This is fundamental that you need to hire organizations, law firms that have expertise, that help you set the documents in place, just like you would hire somebody for a 401k. You need an actuary. Organizations, including D&H, is not set up to track everybody's account, how many shares they have, all the money in, money out through the ESOP trust. So you need an actuary. There's plenty to choose from. And you need a trustee and an appraiser. A trustee then manages the ESOP trust, the shares, on behalf of the organization. The only way the ESOP is involved in the day-to-day decision-making is if you're going to sell the company, liquidate the company, do something of that magnitude. Day-to-day operations, as I said, remains in the management of the organization. The ESOP for D&H, in fact, has never voted on anything because we've never been faced with that level of decision relative to the organization. And you need an appraiser. You need an appraiser from day one because that's the value that the selling shareholders would get when they sell the company. And you need an appraiser annually because as people leave the company throughout the years, you need a new value for the company based on, they look at the industry, they look at your performance, they look at your projections and come up with an appraised value for the company each and every year. I would say the only time that I've seen where companies get over their skis a bit is in that initial transaction, if they value the company at too high of a level and perhaps that wasn't prudent, and then the company's not in a position to support those loan repayments and the thing unravels in the beginning. So I would say that's why hiring an astute appraiser that comes up with a very realistic appraisal, as we have done, I think is the best methodology when you think about who these third parties are. And the great thing is there's the ESOP Association, and we can give references. And through the ESOP Association, there are lots of companies, probably many in your home state, that do this for a living, and plenty of organizations that act as trustees and actuaries as well. So there's no shortage of people that are there to help you through this moment in time. So readiness. So we talked about the ownership being ready, and you feel like you've got an employee base that would see value in this, and you're concerned about the legacy that you leave and want to make sure the company continues. There's also this readiness about how you're going to communicate. And I've seen companies that go through all the due diligence and create the ESOP, but then they sort of let it languish and they don't promote the ESOP. I would say that is a high level of mistaken assumptions, that we very much are focused on communication. We're transparent about how the company's doing, updates, new opportunities, where we're leaning in. We're transparent about how the ESOP, with new hires, how it can become meaningful for them over time. We're transparent about their vesting schedule, and people become 6 years vested. We send them a plant. It's actually called a money tree to celebrate their 100% vesting. We send them an annual benefit statement that shows them not only their ESOP value, but also shows them all the benefits that we're providing, including healthcare and all the intangible things that an organization puts forth on behalf of its employees, and we call them employee co-owners. On the bottom of our email footers, you see employee ownership mentioned in very large letters because we want people to be proud of it. October every year is ESOP month, and we do great things for the employees. Dan and I went around and visited all our locations and sort of reinvigorate the idea for all the new employees of what that can mean for them. So a lot of things companies can do. The worst thing you can do is not do anything. So creating this culture of ownership shouldn't be assumed that just happens on its own. You need to get your marketing departments involved and make sure you're taking advantage of the great benefit that you put forth for the employees. In addition to recruiting and making sure that I would call talent retention is the other aspect that we see. You think about a soccer team, they trade away some of their best players. We're anxious to keep our best players. And how do you keep them when a lot of people could offer them different incentives to go elsewhere? We think the employee ownership is one of those unmatched or unrivaled type opportunities for them working for an organization that is employee owned. We get the sense the morale's great. We get the sense people are proud to be part of D&H. We meet people throughout our daily lives in central Pennsylvania that don't work for D&H, but they work for, they're friends with organizations, people that work in other organizations, people that work at D&H. They say, people at D&H really love working for an organization. And if you sort of dig underneath the covers, peel back the onion a bit, it's really because of the ESOP. That is not only, do they feel welcomed and respected and their voices heard, but I think the ESOP sort of translates into great success stories about their commitment and morale. So Ted Lasso, back to his Lassoisms, has this philosophy: I love a locker room. It smells like potential. So, I think about these three aligning moments back to I believe in hope, I believe in belief, financial aspects of potential, that there is financial benefits for all the owners, for the company, and for the employees on a go-forward basis. It is the trifecta of winning. There is alignment now across the company. Literally everybody that works in your distribution centers, or literally could be anyone that's been with the company 1 year or 20 years, they're going to see value in being part of an ownership culture. And I think that is terrific. And we definitely see organizations align, as Dan mentioned, really increases that cultural value, making sure we're all rowing in the same direction. And, back to the succession planning, the first thing that we talked about is you want the lifespan of an organization to transcend you. So whether Dan and I are here or not, in 20 years, we're not going anywhere for sure, but, things change, life happens. We want this company to be successful. And there's no better way than to think about your organization as you transition, again, whether it's today or some point in the future. Reach out to us, because we're big believers in employee ownership and shared values and shared great outcomes. And we hope that you see success in it as we have, if this is a path that you undertake within your organization. So whether you're an owner, whether you're a manager for your company, whether you just wanted to hear a bit more, we think it's a great opportunity for all of us. So we do thank you for your time today. Dan, I ran over our 45-minute commitment, but I think we had a lot of...
You always go too long. I'm used to it. It's okay. But
I feel like
you
we
know,
had, you know, a lot to talk about and some great, you know, sort of tidbits of information. And this is just scratching the surface. We can dig deeper for anyone that has a greater interest.
yeah, and we connected these two subjects because they're really complementary. And you don't need to have an ESOP to have a great culture. We'd have a great culture regardless. In our case, it's an accelerator for us. And I'm not sure if it's because we have this incredible culture or ESOP, but Michael and I literally get emails every day from co-owners thanking us that they've never had a job where they liked the people more. They've never been happier in their career. It really is very much, if you can emulate some of these things, and we're not rocket scientists, we learn this through the School of Hard Rocks, and we try to amalgamate things we learn from other people. But it's really rewarding for us when people won't run through a wall for you because you tell them to do so. It's because they want to do so. And we really think we've built a culture and a team of people that drive that. I received a few LinkedIn invites during this, which I've accepted. I appreciate people reaching out. We got some questions. So for Matt N and Matt R, you both asked about these slides. Will we share them? Yes, we're going to send out the link. You'll probably get it tomorrow, which includes all the slides in our presentation. Hank W asked or mentioned that he already used the line, tell me what you think I don't want to hear, and it works great, so it's good to hear that. So again, this link will be on demand within 24 hours. It's from the link you used today, but we'll resend the link out to everyone. And ultimately, on behalf of Michael, myself, all of our co-owners at D&H, we just wanted to thank you for the great partnership. Wish you an amazing Thanksgiving. Thank you for the business that we do together. We're willing to do what it takes to hopefully earn more of your business and exceed your expectations. You have Michael and my contact info. You can reach out to us, but hopefully everyone in our organization takes great care of you. So appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. There's probably a lot of people smarter than us, but especially Michael.
I feel, Dan, I think about those that joined us today. We again, thank you for the business, but we're so excited about what the future holds as we roll through the balance of 2025 into 2026. There is no better place to be, I believe, than the IT industry. Like, we are leaning in. We use this acronym BFG, built for growth. And you see it all over our marketing materials. And we really do believe, as proud as we are of the past and everything we've accomplished, we're more excited about the future and all the good things that are forthcoming. So I'm glad all of you are along with for the journey with us. Thank you so much.
Yep. Be well, everyone. Have a great Thanksgiving. Thanks for joining. Take care.
Thank you.